we can convert between fractions, decimals, and percentages because they all mean the same thing. They all represent a part of a whole. I'm going to quickly go over how we do each of the conversions now, but I'll go over them each individually in more detail after. So say we started with a decimal and we started with 0.3. If I want to change a decimal to a percentage, I multiply by 100. So I can change a decimal to a percentage by timesing by 100. 0.3 times 100, that's the same as timesing by 10 twice. So times 10 once for 3, times 10 twice will be 30. And we write that as 30 with a percent sign, 30%. If I wanted to change a percentage back to a decimal, I'll do the opposite, which is dividing by 100. So decimal to percent times 100, percent back to decimal, divide by 100. To change a percentage to a fraction, I can just rewrite the percentage as a fraction. So a percentage is really a fraction out of 100. So 30% means 30 over 100. So if ever you've got a percent, that's the same as a fraction out of 100. And I can simplify this fraction. I can say they're both in the top and bottom are both in the 10 times table. So I've got 3/10. So to convert a percentage to a fraction, we can rewrite over 100 and simplify. To change a fraction back to a percentage, we can either do the opposite, which is make the fraction out of 100 and then rewrite it as a percentage, or we can times by 100. So either times by 100 or write over 100. To change a fraction to a decimal, we take the top number and divide by the bottom number. So 3 divided by 10 in this case. So top divided by bottom, or you could say numerator divided by denominator. So 3 divided by 10 is 0.3. So I'm going to go over each of these in a bit more detail now. So these first questions are converting decimals to percentages. To convert a decimal to a percentage, we're multiplying by 100. So we're going to multiply each of these by 100. So 0.24 times 100 times 10 once is 2.4 times 10 twice is 24. So it's 24%. 0.65 times 100, 65%. 0.02 times 100, so times 10 once will be 0.2, times 10 twice will be 2. 0.9, so times 10 once for 9, times 10 twice is 90. And 0.055 times 10 once is 0.55, times 10 twice, and that'll be 5.5. So it's 5.5%. 5 for you to try here, give them a go. Question 1, we've got 0.88. So that is 88%. 0.01 is 1%. 0.3 is 30%. 0.97 is 97%. And 0.526 is 52.6%. So each time we're multiplying by 100. To convert from a percentage to a decimal, we're going to do the opposite. So we are going to divide by 100. So 72% divided by 100. Divide by 10 once, be 7.2. Divide by 10 twice, 0.72. 21%, so 21 divided by 100 is 0.21. 80 divided by 100, divide by 10 once is 8, divide by 10 twice is 0.8. 6 divided by 100, so 0.6, and then 0.06. And 3.5 divided by 100, so divide by 10 twice, we've got 0.35, and then 0.035. So 5 for you to try. Convert the percentages to decimals. So each time divide by 100. Question 1, you should have 0.34. Question 2, 0.12. For 2%, 0.02. 60% is 0.6. And 0.7% is 0.007. Divide by 10 once for 0.07. Divide by 10 twice for 0.007. Convert these percentages to fractions. So remember, percent means out of 100. So percent out of 100. So we can rewrite a percentage as a fraction out of 100. And we're going to simplify our answers if we can. So 7% means 7 hundredths. 7 out of 100. 7 and 100, well, 7's a prime number. 7 and 100 aren't in the same times table. So that is as simple as it gets. 20% means 20 over 100. 20 and 100 are both in the, well, the biggest times table is the 20 times table. So it's 120 and 5 20s. 35%, so 35 over 100. And they are both in the 5 times table. So we've got 7 5s makes 35, and 25s make 100. And 12%, so 12 over 100. And we can say they're both in the 4 times table. So we've got 3 25ths. You could have halved it and halved it again. You should get the same answer. Okay, 4 for you to try. So give them a go. Question 1, we've got 2%. So that's the same as 2 over 100. They're both even, so we can half them. So 1/50th. 15% is 15 over 100. And they are both in the 5 times table. So it's 3/20ths. 98% is 98 over 100. And they're both even, so we can half them both. 49 over 50. And 28% is 28 over 100. And we can do it in steps if we want. We can half them both. So 14 over 50. And then half again. 7 over 25. You could have divided by 4 to start with. But either way, you get the same answer. Convert these fractions to percentages. So we can convert fractions to percentages by doing the opposite, which is making the fraction out of 100. So how can we make 3/10 out of 100? If we times top and bottom by the same thing, the fraction stays equivalent. So we can change a fraction by timesing top and bottom by the same thing. So to make the bottom, the denominator, 100, we need to times by 10. So we'll times the numerator, the top number, by 10 as well. So that makes 30 out of 100. And 30 out of 100 is 30%. 11/20ths for question 2. To make our bottom number, our denominator, 100, we're going to multiply by 5. And whatever we multiply the bottom by, we need to multiply the top by the same thing. So that gives us 55 out of 100, which is 55%. And the third one, to make our denominator 100, we're going to multiply by 4. So we're going to multiply top and bottom by 4. 6 4s are 24. 24 over 100 is 24%. Okay, 3 for you to try, so give them a go. Question 1, let's multiply top and bottom by 2. So we've got 38 out of 100, which is 38%. Question 2, multiply top and bottom by 20. So we've got 60 out of 100, or 60%. And question 3, multiply top and bottom by 5. So we've got 15 out of 100, or 15%. And the last one, we're going to convert fractions to decimals. So to convert a fraction to a decimal, we're going to divide the top number by the bottom number. We can always rewrite a fraction as a division. So if you look at the divide sign, it looks like a fraction, and it's 7 divided by 10. 7/10 is the same as 7 divided by 10. So if we do 7 divided by 10, we get 0.7, and that is a decimal. For question 2, we've got 13 divided by 20, and that looks complicated, but what we can do is we can make it out of 100 or make it out of 10 to make our division easier. So if we either multiply top and bottom by 5 to make it out of 100, which we'll do. So 13 times 5 is 65. 20 times 5 is 100. So it's 65 over 100. And 65 divided by 100 is 0.65. We could have also halved top and bottom and had 6.5 over 10. And 6.5 divided by 10 is also 0.65. And the third one, 1/6. Now, this one is a lot harder. So we need to do 1 divided by 6. But there's no way of making this an easy calculation. So we are going to have to use our short division method. So how many 6's go into 1? So let's write 1.0000. So how many 6's are going to go into 1? It's going to be a decimal. So I've added all these zeros. I'm going to write the 6 times table down the side. So 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. That's 5 6's. 36 is 6 squared. And 42, 48, 54, and 60. So all the way up to 10. So how many 6's go into 1? That's 0. And we've got 1 to carry over, 1 left over. How many 6's go into 10? That's 1, with 4 left over. How many 6's go into 40? That's 6. 6 6's are 36. And we've got 4 left over. How many 6's go into 40? That's 6, with 4 left over. How many 6's go into 40? That's 6, with 4 left over, and so on. So 1/6 as a decimal is 0.16666 going on forever. So we can write that as 0.16 recurring. If we had a calculator, this would have been a lot easier, we would have just written 1 divided by 6, or even 1/6 into the calculator, and it would have given us the answer. So if we wrote 1/6 into the calculator and press the S to D button, it would tell us it's 0.16 recurring, 0.1666666 going on forever. The calculator's put a 7 on the end because the calculator was rounded. We can do any fraction, decimal, and percentage conversion in the calculator. If you start with a percentage, so 26%, use the percent button on the calculator, press equals, it's going to change it to a fraction straight away for you, and if you press the S to D button, you're going to get a decimal as well. And if you started with a decimal, the calculator will turn it into the fraction for you. Okay, 3 of these for you to try. So 21 over 50 doesn't look easy, but if we double the top and the bottom, so it's 42 out of 100, that's a lot easier to divide. So 42 divided by 100 is 0.42. For 3/5, again, 3 divided by 5 isn't very easy, but we can change the calculation, double top and bottom, and we'll have 6 divided by 10, which is 0.6. And 2/3, if you already know what 2/3 is as a decimal, you can just write down the answer. It's one that people might remember. Or the alternative is to see how many 3's go into 2. So how many 3's go into 2 point, we'll add some zeros, 2.0000. Write down the 3 times table. How many 3's go into 2? That's 0. 2 left over. How many 3's go into 20? That's 6. 6 make 18. With 2 left over. How many 3's go into 20? That's 6. With 2 left over. How many 3's go into 20? That's 6 with 2 left over, and so on. So 2/3 is 0.6 recurring, 0.6 going on forever. 0.666666. So that was converting between fractions, decimals, and percentages. To finish up, we've got a table here, converting between fractions, decimals, and percentages, and see if you can fill in the gaps. The first one is 1/4. So we've got 1/4, which is a fraction, and we need to write that as a decimal and a percentage. This might be one of the ones that you know, and that is 0.25 as a decimal and 25%. You could have done 1 divided by 4 to figure it out if you didn't know it. For the second one, we've got 0.2, which is a decimal. To convert it to a percentage, we can times by 100. So times by 10 twice, which is 20%. And then to write that as a fraction, that's 20 over 100. But they're both in the 20 times table, so it simplifies to 1/5. 36% as a fraction is 36 over 100. And they're both in the 4 times table, so that simplifies to 9/25. And as a decimal, 36 divided by 100 is 0.36. 0.18 as a percentage times by 100, so 18%. And then we'll write that as a fraction, as 18 over 100. Or we can half top and bottom, 9/50. 1/3 Hopefully that's one you know. It's 0.3333 going on forever, 0.3 recurring as a percentage. So 0.3 going on forever times 100 is 33.3 going on forever percent. And we've got 4%, so it's a fraction, 4 100ths. Divide top and bottom by 4 is 1/25th. Or as a decimal, 4 divided by 100 is 0.04.